My name is Clara Whitaker, and at 28 years old, I never expected my sister's college graduation would become the sweetest revenge I've ever experienced. Standing beside my younger sister Emma in her cap and gown, watching her beam with pride as she held her diploma, should have been simply joyful. The spring sun was shining, families were celebrating, and the university campus buzzed with excitement. But years of unfair treatment had built up to this moment, and I couldn't shake the memory of my father's cold words from just hours earlier. I still hear them echoing in my mind. "Clara, you're not family anymore. You chose your path, and it doesn't include us. Don't embarrass Emma by showing up where you don't belong." The memory of that night when I was 18, when my parents told me I was too much of a dreamer to deserve their support, had shaped every decision I'd made since. Before I reveal what made their faces turn ghostly pale when Emma's business professor approached me at the reception, I want to ask you something. If you've ever had to fight twice as hard to prove you deserve half as much, hit that like button. Because this story is for everyone who's been counted out before they even had a chance to prove themselves. I grew up in what looked like a picture-perfect family in Millbrook Heights, a quiet suburb outside of Chicago. Our colonial-style house sat on a tree-lined street where every lawn was perfectly manicured and every family seemed to have their lives together. My parents, David and Margaret Whitaker, were pillars of the community. Dad worked as a senior manager at a prestigious consulting firm, while Mom taught third grade at the local elementary school. We weren't wealthy, but we were comfortable enough that college funds and family vacations were just expected parts of life. My sister Emma was everything our parents dreamed of in a daughter. 2 years younger than me, she had inherited Mom's delicate features and Dad's analytical mind. Even as a child, she excelled effortlessly at everything she touched. Piano recitals, honor roll, student council president, debate team captain, Emma collected achievements like other kids collected toys. She was organized, predictable, and never questioned authority. She was exactly what our parents wanted me to be. I, on the other hand, was what Mom diplomatically called spirited, and Dad less diplomatically called difficult. Where Emma saw rules to follow, I saw suggestions to improve upon. Where she found comfort in structure, I found creativity in chaos. While she studied diligently for tests, I spent hours sketching business ideas in my notebooks, dreaming up ways to solve problems I saw in the world around me. The differential treatment started small. When Emma brought home A's, she got praise and celebration dinners. When I brought home A's mixed with a few B's because I'd spent time working on a project I was passionate about, I got lectures about applying myself and reaching my potential. When Emma joined approved activities like National Honor Society, she got full parental support and transportation to every meeting. When I started an informal tutoring business helping struggling classmates with math, I got told I was wasting time on nonsense instead of focusing on my own grades. By high school, the pattern was clear. Emma was the investment. I was the risk they weren't willing to take. The breaking point came during my senior year. I had been accepted to Northwestern University with a partial scholarship, but I needed help covering the remaining $15,000 per year. I had a detailed plan. I'd work part-time, take out minimal loans, and supplement with the small business I'd been growing throughout high school. I was already making about $200 a month helping local small businesses with basic marketing and social media management. But when I sat down with my parents to discuss college funding, the conversation went nowhere near what I expected. "Clara, we need to be realistic about your future," Dad said, his voice taking on that patronizing tone I'd come to dread. "Northwestern is expensive, and frankly, we're not sure it's worth the investment given your inconsistent academic performance. I have a 3.7 GPA, I protested. And I got a scholarship. Your sister has a 4.0, Mom interjected gently. And she's already been accepted to University of Chicago with a full academic scholarship. We need to be smart about where we put our resources. Emma doesn't need your money, I said, feeling the familiar knot forming in my stomach. I'm asking for help, not a handout. I have a plan to pay you back. Dad shook his head. Those little projects of yours aren't a career plan, Clara. They're distractions. What you need is to go to community college, get practical skills, and stop chasing these entrepreneurial fantasies. That's when Mom delivered the words that would haunt me for years. Emma deserves our support because she's proven she can succeed. You haven't earned that trust yet. I stared at them in disbelief. So I have to prove I deserve your help, but she gets it automatically? Life isn't fair, Clara, Dad said coldly. The sooner you learn that, the better off you'll be. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, feeling like I was drowning. Everything I had worked for, every dream I had nurtured, felt suddenly impossible. But as the hours passed, something shifted inside me. If they needed proof I could succeed, I'd give them proof. If they thought I couldn't make it without their help, I'd show them exactly what I was capable of. The next morning, I withdrew my enrollment from Northwestern and enrolled at Harper Community College instead. I moved out of our house 3 days after graduation, taking a job at a local coffee shop and renting a tiny studio apartment above a pizza place. My parents seemed almost relieved. You're making the right choice, Mom said as I packed my few belongings. This will be good for you. More realistic. Emma hugged me goodbye with tears in her eyes. I don't understand why you're leaving, she whispered. You could have just gone to community college and stayed home. I hugged her back, breathing in her familiar vanilla perfume. Because I need to prove something, Em. To them, and to myself. She was the only one who seemed sad to see me go. My studio apartment was exactly 400 square feet of barely controlled chaos. The kitchen was a hot plate, a mini fridge, and a sink that only worked if you jiggled the handle just right. The bathroom was so small I had to step into the hallway to fully open the door. But it was mine, and for the first time in my life, I felt the intoxicating freedom of being completely responsible for my own success or failure. Working at Brew and Book's coffee shop wasn't glamorous, but it taught me more about business than any textbook ever could. I learned how to read customers, how to manage inventory, how to handle difficult situations with grace. More importantly, I learned how to spot opportunities. The coffee shop's owner, Mrs. Chen, was a 60-year-old immigrant who had built her business from nothing but had no idea how to leverage social media or online marketing. Her customer base was steady but aging, and she was struggling to attract younger clientele despite serving the best coffee in a 5-mile radius. Mrs. Chen, I said one afternoon during a slow period, what if I helped you get more customers? I wouldn't charge you anything up front, just a small percentage of any new revenue I bring in. She looked skeptical. You're barely 20 years old. What do you know about marketing? Give me 2 weeks, I said. If you don't see results, we'll pretend this conversation never happened. That night, I created Instagram and Facebook accounts for Brew and Books. I started photographing the beautiful latte art Mrs. Chen created, the cozy reading nooks, the local artists' work displayed on the walls. I wrote copy that told the story of her immigrant journey and the love she poured into every cup. I created a simple hashtag campaign, #BrewandBelongHere. Within a week, foot traffic had increased by 30%. College students started coming in to study and take photos for their own social media. Local food bloggers discovered us. This small corner shop that had been struggling to stay afloat suddenly had a line out the door during peak hours. Mrs. Chun was amazed. "How did you do this?" "I've been here 15 years, and I've never seen anything like it." "You already had everything you needed," I told her. "You just needed help showing it to the right people." She gave me a 15% commission on all new revenue, which came out to about $600 my first month. It wasn't much, but it was proof of concept. I had found something I was not just good at, but exceptional at, helping small businesses tell their stories and find their customers. Word spread quickly in the small business community. The florist next door asked me to help her struggling shop. Then the family-owned restaurant down the street. By the end of my first year, I was managing social media and basic marketing for 8 local businesses, earning enough to cover my living expenses while still attending community college full-time. My parents, meanwhile, had no idea what I was doing. They assumed I was just getting by on my coffee shop wages, probably struggling but too proud to ask for help. The few times they called, our conversations were brief and surface level. "How's school going, Clara?" Mom would ask. "Good. I'm getting good grades." "That's nice, dear. Are you eating enough? That little apartment doesn't have a proper kitchen." "I'm fine, Mom." They never asked about my business. They never asked about my dreams or my plans. In their minds, I was exactly where they expected me to be, somewhere safe and small and manageable. Emma, though, was curious. She'd call me every few weeks, full of stories about her classes at University of Chicago, her internships, her study abroad plans. But she always made time to ask about my life, too. "Are you happy, Clara?" she asked during one of our calls. "I mean, really happy? You sound different." "I'm building something, I told her. "I can't explain it yet, but I'm building something important." "I believe you," she said simply. "I've always believed you could do anything you set your mind to." Those words kept me going during the harder days. When I was exhausted from working 16-hour days between the coffee shop, my client businesses, and my classes. When my tiny apartment felt like a cage instead of a sanctuary. When I saw Emma's social media posts about family dinners and weekend trips home and felt the sharp pang of being excluded from the life I used to know. But every month, my client list grew. Every month, my income increased. And every month, I felt more confident that I was building something my parents would eventually have to respect, even if they couldn't understand it. By the end of my second year at community college, I was managing marketing for 23 local businesses and earning more money than either of my parents. I had also maintained a 4.0 GPA while building what was essentially a small marketing agency from my studio apartment. I was ready for the next phase of my plan. Northwestern University's transfer admissions office was intimidating in all the ways I remembered. The marble floors, the oak-paneled walls, the sense that everyone belonged there except me. But this time, I wasn't the desperate 18-year-old begging my parents for financial support. I was a 20-year-old entrepreneur with a thriving business and a clear vision for my future. "Ms. Whitaker," the admissions counselor said, reviewing my application. "Your community college transcripts are exemplary, and your business experience is unusual for someone your age. Tell me more about this marketing consultancy you've built." I had practiced this conversation dozens of times, but sitting in that office, I felt the old insecurities creeping back. What if they thought I was just a kid playing dress-up in the business world? What if my success was smaller than it seemed? But then I thought about Mrs. Chin, whose coffee shop now had a 6-month waiting list for their Saturday morning Instagram workshops. I thought about Martina's family restaurant, which had gone from near bankruptcy to being featured in Chicago Magazine's Best Hidden Gems list. I thought about the flower shop that now supplied arrangements for 3 of the city's most exclusive hotels. I help small businesses tell their stories, I said, finding my confidence. Not just their marketing stories, but their human stories. In 2 years, I've helped 23 businesses increase their revenue by an average of 47%. More importantly, I've helped them connect with their communities in ways they never thought possible. The counselor leaned forward. That's impressive. What made you choose Northwestern for your bachelor's degree? Because I want to learn how to scale what I'm doing, I said honestly. I can help 23 businesses succeed. I want to learn how to help 230 or 2030. 3 weeks later, I received my acceptance letter. Full transfer admission to Northwestern's Kellogg School of Management, with a partial scholarship based on my academic performance and business experience. I would still need to cover about $20,000 per year, but between my business income and student loans, it was manageable. I called Emma first. Clara, she screamed into the phone. Oh my God, Northwestern. I'm so proud of you. Thanks, Em. I'm pretty excited. Have you told Mom and Dad yet? I hesitated. No, not yet. I wanted to tell you first. They're going to be so surprised. And proud. Clara, they're going to be so proud. I wasn't sure about that, but I hoped she was right. When I called my parents that evening, their reaction was not what I expected. Northwestern. Dad's voice was flat. Clara, that's a very expensive school. Are you sure you've thought this through? I have a plan, Dad. My business is doing well, and I qualify for student loans to cover the rest. Your little marketing thing is going to pay for Northwestern? Mom sounded skeptical. Honey, that's not sustainable. What happens when those businesses don't need you anymore? Then I'll find new ones, I said, feeling my excitement deflate. Mom, this is good news. I'm going to one of the best business schools in the country. It's just, we worry about you taking on so much debt for something so uncertain, Dad said. Emma's getting her degree debt-free. She's going to graduate and immediately start her job at that consulting firm. That's a secure path. But this is my path, I said quietly. We just want what's best for you, Clara. We always have. After I hung up, I sat in my tiny apartment feeling hollow. Even my acceptance to Northwestern, something that should have been a celebration, felt diminished by their doubt. But as I looked around at the business plans tacked to my walls, the thank you notes from clients, the financial projections that showed my steady growth, I realized something important. I didn't need their validation anymore. I had proof of my own worth. The next 2 years at Northwestern were intense but exhilarating. I maintained my existing client base while taking a full course load, often working until 2 a.m. and waking up at 6 a.m. for classes. My professors were impressed by my real-world experience, and several of them became mentors, helping me refine my business strategies and expand my understanding of market dynamics. During my junior year, I made a decision that would change everything. I was going to scale my business into a proper agency. I recruited 3 other students, a graphic designer, a content writer, and a data analyst, and together we founded Whitaker and Associates Marketing Solutions. Our first major client was a chain of family-owned Italian restaurants that had been struggling to compete with corporate chains. Using everything I'd learned at Northwestern combined with the grassroots approach I developed with my small business clients, we developed a comprehensive digital marketing strategy that increased their foot traffic by 78% in 6 months. Word spread quickly in Chicago's business community. By the end of my junior year, Whitaker and Associates had 12 employees and annual revenue of $1.2 million. We had moved from my studio apartment to a proper office space in River North. I was featured in Crain's Chicago Business as one of 20 under 25 to watch. My parents' reaction to the article was typically lukewarm. "That's nice," dear mom said when I sent her the link. "Just make sure you're not neglecting your studies." "The business is doing well because of my studies," I tried to explain. "Everything I'm learning at Northwestern is making me better at what I do." "Just don't get too big for your britches," Dad warned. "Success can disappear as quickly as it comes." Emma, on the other hand, called me screaming with excitement. "Clara, you're in a magazine. A real magazine." I showed it to everyone in my dorm. "I'm so proud to be your sister." As I entered my senior year, I felt like I was finally becoming the person I was meant to be. My business was thriving, my grades were excellent, and I had built a team of talented people who believed in the vision I'd been nurturing since I was 18 years old. But the biggest test was still ahead of me. Spring of my senior year brought an opportunity that would define the rest of my career. Marcus Webb, the CEO of Webb Industries, a mid-sized manufacturing company that had been struggling with brand recognition, approached my agency about a complete marketing overhaul. "I've been watching what you've done with small businesses," he said during our first meeting. "But I need to know if you can think bigger. This isn't about helping a coffee shop get more customers. This is about repositioning a $50 million company in a competitive market." The contract he was offering was worth $300,000, more than double any project we'd ever taken on. But it would also require me to defer my graduation by one semester to focus entirely on the campaign launch. I agonized over the decision for weeks. Northwestern had been my dream, and I was so close to finishing. But this was the exact kind of opportunity I'd been building toward for 4 years. When I called my parents to discuss the situation, their response was swift and unequivocal. "Absolutely not," Dad said before I'd even finished explaining. "Clara, you are not going to throw away your Northwestern degree for some business deal." "I'm not throwing it away, Dad. I'm just postponing graduation by 6 months so I can." "So you can chase another one of your schemes," Mom interrupted. "Honey, we've watched you get distracted by these projects before. Your education has to come first." "This isn't a distraction," I said, feeling my voice rise. "This is my career. This is what I've been working toward." "Your career is getting your degree and finding a stable job," Dad said firmly. "What you're doing is playing at being a businesswoman. It's time to grow up and make responsible choices." The conversation spiraled from there. They accused me of being reckless and irresponsible. I accused them of never having faith in me. Finally, Dad delivered an ultimatum that stunned me into silence. "If you defer your graduation for this business nonsense, don't expect any support from us. Not financial, not emotional, nothing. You'll be making it clear that you don't value what we've tried to teach you about responsibility and commitment." "You haven't given me financial support since I was 18, I said quietly. "That's different. You chose to be independent. But if you make this choice, you're choosing to not be part of this family." Mom tried to soften his words. "What your father means is that we can't enable decisions we think are harmful to your future. We love you, but we have to draw the line somewhere." After I hung up, I sat in my office staring out at the Chicago skyline, feeling more alone than I had in years. Part of me wanted to take the safe path, finish my degree on schedule, make my parents proud. But the larger part of me, the part that had been building toward this moment for 4 years, knew what I had to do. I took the Webb Industries contract and deferred my graduation. The campaign we developed for Webb Industries was unlike anything I'd ever attempted. We repositioned them from a generic manufacturing company to a precision craftsmanship brand, highlighting their American-made quality and family-owned heritage. We created a documentary-style video series featuring their employees talking about the pride they took in their work. We partnered with local community organizations to sponsor apprenticeship programs. The results exceeded everyone's expectations. Within 3 months of launch, Web Industries saw a 23% increase in new client inquiries. Within 6 months, they had secured 2 major contracts that increased their annual revenue by $8 million. Marcus Webb was so impressed that he not only paid our fee, but also invested $500,000 in Whitaker and Associates for a 10% equity stake. At 23 years old, I was running a marketing agency valued at $5 million. My parents' reaction to this success was crickets. They didn't return my calls. They didn't acknowledge the articles written about the Web Industries campaign. They had made good on their threat to cut me off emotionally, and it hurt more than I expected. Emma, though, remained my biggest supporter. She was completing her senior year at University of Chicago and had already secured a position at McKinsey & Company consulting firm. "I don't understand them," she said during one of our regular phone calls. "What you've accomplished is incredible. Any parent should be proud." "They think I'm being reckless," I said. "They think I'm going to lose everything and come crawling back." "Are you going to lose everything?" I looked around my office, at the awards on the wall, at the team of 15 people who depended on me for their livelihoods, at the financial projections that showed consistent growth year over year. "No," I said with certainty. "I'm not." "Then that's all that matters." But deep down, I still yearned for their approval. I still wanted them to be proud of what I'd built. I still hoped that someday they would see that the path I'd chosen, the one they'd called reckless and irresponsible, had led me to exactly where I was supposed to be. I just didn't know that someday would come sooner than I expected. Emma's graduation invitation arrived on a Tuesday in March, 3 weeks before the ceremony. It was beautiful, cream-colored cardstock with elegant gold lettering, announcing her graduation magna cum laude from the University of Chicago with a degree in economics. But it was the handwritten note on the back that made my heart race. "Clara, I know things have been weird with Mom and Dad, but this day won't be complete without you there. You're my sister and my hero, and I need you beside me when I walk across that stage. Please come. I love you. Emma." I held the invitation for a long time, feeling the weight of everything that had happened between me and my parents over the past 5 years. Since I deferred my graduation to take the Web Industries contract, we'd spoken maybe a dozen times, and those conversations had been stilted and uncomfortable. They'd made it clear that they viewed my choices as a rejection of their values, and I'd made it clear that I wasn't going to apologize for my success. But Emma was different. Emma had always been different. She'd never judged me for the path I'd chosen, and she'd celebrated every milestone with genuine joy. If she wanted me at her graduation, I would be there. I called her that evening. I got your invitation." "And?" Her voice was hopeful but nervous. "Of course I'll be there. I wouldn't miss it for the world." "Oh, thank God," she breathed. "I was so worried you'd say no because of Mom and Dad. What did they say when you told them you were inviting me?" There was a pause. "I didn't exactly tell them. Emma, Clara, listen. You're my sister. I don't care that they're being stubborn and ridiculous. I don't care that Dad still thinks you're going through some kind of rebellious phase. This is my graduation, and I want my whole family there. What if they make a scene?" "They won't," she said firmly. "They might be disappointed in your choices, but they're not going to ruin my day. Besides, they haven't seen you in 2 years. Maybe it's time." I agreed to come, but I'd be lying if I said I wasn't nervous. The last time I'd been in the same room as my parents was Christmas dinner 2 years earlier, which had ended with Dad lecturing me about the fantasy I was living and me leaving before dessert was served. But as Emma's graduation day approached, I found myself looking forward to it. I wanted to see her walk across that stage and receive the recognition she'd worked so hard for. I wanted to celebrate her achievement without the complicated dynamics that had defined so much of my relationship with my family. I also, if I'm being honest, wanted to show my parents who I'd become. The morning of the graduation, I dressed carefully in a navy blue dress and blazer, professional but not flashy. I drove to the University of Chicago campus in my new BMW, a purchase I'd made after the web industry's success, feeling a mixture of excitement and anxiety that reminded me of my first day at Northwestern. The graduation ceremony was being held in the university's main quadrangle, with families seated in neat rows facing the stage where faculty and graduating students would process. I found my parents in the third row, looking exactly as I remembered them. Dad in his best navy suit, Mom in a floral dress with her hair perfectly styled. They saw me approaching before I reached their row. "Clara," Mom said, her voice carefully neutral. "Emma said you might be coming." "She invited me," I said simply, taking the empty seat beside her. "She wanted her family here." Dad nodded stiffly but didn't say anything. For several minutes, we sat in uncomfortable silence, watching as other families chatted and took photos around us. Finally, Mom spoke. "You look well." "Thank you. So do you." How are things?" she asked carefully. "Good. Busy, but good." Dad shifted in his seat. "Still doing the marketing thing?" "Still running my marketing agency, yes." He made a non-committal sound that could have meant anything. The ceremony began before we could continue this awkward attempt at conversation, and I was grateful for the distraction. As the graduating class processed onto the stage, I spotted Emma immediately. She looked radiant in her cap and gown, her blonde hair curled perfectly beneath her graduation cap, her smile bright enough to light up the entire quadrangle. When they called her name, Emma Louise Whitaker, magna cum laude, Bachelor of Arts in Economics, all four of us cheered. For that moment, sitting there watching my brilliant sister accept her diploma, it felt like we were a family again. But the real surprise came during the reception afterward. The post-graduation reception was held in the university's elegant alumni hall, with round tables draped in white linens and centerpieces of spring flowers. Emma was glowing as she moved through the crowd, accepting congratulations from classmates, professors, and family friends. I was standing with my parents near the refreshment table, making stilted small talk about the weather and the lovely ceremony, when a distinguished-looking man in his 50s approached our group. "Excuse me," he said, looking directly at me. "Are you Clara Whitaker?" I felt my parents' attention sharpen. "Yes, I am." He extended his hand with a warm smile. "Dr. Richard Morrison, Professor of Marketing and Entrepreneurship here at the university. I've been hoping to meet you for quite some time." I shook his hand, confused. "I'm sorry, do we know each other?" "Not personally, but I know your work. Your web industries campaign was brilliant. We actually use it as a case study in my graduate marketing course. The way you repositioned a traditional manufacturing company by highlighting their human story and community connections was masterful." I could feel my parents staring at me, but I kept my focus on Dr. Morrison. "Thank you. That's very kind." "Kind nothing. It's the truth. But more than that, I've been following your agency's growth over the past year. Whitaker and Associates is doing exactly the kind of innovative, community-focused marketing that I believe represents the future of the industry. He turned to include my parents in the conversation. You must be incredibly proud of Clara. What she's accomplished by the age of 25 is remarkable. Most people spend decades trying to build what she's created in just a few years. My parents looked stunned. Dad recovered first. Yes, well, Clara has always been ambitious. Ambitious is one word for it, Dr. Morrison laughed. I'd call it visionary. Do you realize that Whitaker and Associates was featured in Harvard Business Review last month as one of the most innovative small agencies in the Midwest? This was news to me. I'd been so busy with client work that I'd missed the article, but I tried to keep my expression neutral. Mom found her voice. Harvard Business Review? Oh, yes. The article focused on how smaller agencies like Clara's are disrupting traditional marketing by focusing on authentic storytelling and community engagement rather than just demographics and data points. Very impressive work. Dr. Morrison turned back to me. Actually, I was hoping we might have a chance to chat more extensively. I'm developing a new executive education program focused on entrepreneurial marketing, and I'd love to discuss the possibility of you being a guest lecturer. We'd want you to teach some sessions on building sustainable business relationships and scaling creative agencies. Before I could respond, Emma appeared at my elbow, practically bouncing with excitement. Dr. Morrison, you found my sister. You know Professor Morrison? I asked. He was my advisor for my senior thesis on innovative business models in traditional industries, Emma said proudly. I wrote about your company as one of my case studies. Dr. Morrison, this is my sister Clara, the CEO I was telling you about. CEO? Dad's voice was faint. Dr. Morrison nodded enthusiastically. Oh yes, Clara is the founder and CEO of Whitaker and Associates. 32 employees now, isn't it? Annual revenue around $7 million. $8.2 million as of our last quarterly report, I said quietly, watching my parents' faces. Mom sat down heavily in the nearest chair. Incredible, Dr. Morrison continued. And you're still so young. Clara, I have to ask, what drove you to start your own agency rather than joining an established firm? Most people with your Northwestern credentials would have gone straight to a big agency in New York or Chicago. I glanced at my parents, who were listening with expressions of complete shock. I wanted to prove that you could build something meaningful from nothing, I said honestly. I wanted to show that if you're willing to work hard and take risks, you don't need anyone else's permission to succeed. Well, you've certainly proven that. Your parents must have been so supportive of your entrepreneurial spirit from the beginning. An awkward silence fell over our group. Emma, sensing the tension, jumped in quickly. Dr. Morrison, would you excuse us for just a moment? I want to introduce Clara to a few more people. As Emma steered me away from the group, I could see my parents still sitting at the table, apparently deep in intense conversation with Dr. Morrison. That was amazing, Emma whispered as we walked across the room. Did you see their faces? I don't think they had any idea how successful you've become. I tried to tell them, I said. They never seemed interested in the details. Clara, I need to tell you something. Emma stopped walking and turned to face me. I know they've been awful to you. I know they never supported your business the way they should have. But I also know they love you, and I think they're finally starting to realize that they were wrong. Before I could respond, we were approached by another professor, then a group of Emma's classmates, then several family friends who had known us growing up. Word had somehow spread that the Clara Whitaker from Whitaker and Associates was Emma's sister, and suddenly I found myself surrounded by people wanting to know about my business, my success story, my plans for the future. For the next hour, I was pulled into conversation after conversation with professors, business leaders, and other parents who had heard about my agency through various professional networks. Each conversation made it clearer just how much my parents had underestimated what I'd built. But the most meaningful moment came when I finally made it back to where my parents were sitting. I found my parents exactly where I'd left them an hour earlier, but they looked completely different. Dad's usually perfect posture had crumbled slightly, and Mom was clutching her purse like it was an anchor. They were sitting in silence, both staring into the distance with expressions I'd never seen before. "Mom? Dad?" I approached cautiously. Dad looked up at me, and for the first time in years, I saw something other than disappointment in his eyes. "Clara, we need to talk." I sat down across from them, my heart pounding. Emma appeared beside me, as if she'd been watching from across the room, waiting for this moment. "I'll give you guys some privacy," she started to say, but Dad shook his head. "No, Emma. You should hear this too." Mom's voice was barely above a whisper. "Clara, we had no idea. We had absolutely no idea what you'd accomplished." "I tried to tell you," I said gently, "multiple times over the years. We know." Dad's voice was rough. "We know, and that makes this so much worse. We thought, God, Clara, we thought you were just playing at being a businesswoman. We thought it was some kind of phase you'd grow out of." When Dr. Morrison started talking about Harvard Business Review and executive education programs and $8 million in revenue, Mom trailed off, shaking her head. "We realized we don't know you at all. We don't know who you've become." Emma reached over and squeezed my hand. "Tell them," she said softly. "Tell them about Mrs. Chin and the coffee shop. Tell them about all the businesses you've helped. Tell them about your employees and your office and everything you've built." So I did. For the next 30 minutes, I told them the story they'd never asked to hear. I told them about my tiny studio apartment and my first client who took a chance on a 20-year-old with big dreams. I told them about the sleepless nights, the rejections, the moments when I questioned everything I was doing. I told them about the businesses I'd saved from bankruptcy, the jobs I'd helped create, the families whose lives had improved because their small business was finally thriving. I told them about Marcus Webb calling me 6 months after our campaign launched to tell me that Whitaker and Associates had helped his company secure the largest contract in their 40-year history. I told them about the thank you letters I received from employees whose jobs had been saved because we'd helped turn their companies around. I told them about the scholarship fund I'd started for first-generation college students who wanted to study business but couldn't afford it. Last year, we gave out 12 scholarships worth $5,000 each, I said. This year, we're doubling that. I know how it feels to not have family support when you're trying to build something. I never want another kid to go through what I went through. Mom was crying openly now. "Clara, how did we get this so wrong?" "Because you were scared," I said, and I meant it without malice. "You were scared that I was going to fail, and you thought if you didn't support me, it would somehow hurt less when I did. But I didn't fail, Mom. I succeeded beyond anything I ever imagined possible." Dad cleared his throat roughly. "When you were 18 and you asked us to help with Northwestern, we said you hadn't earned our trust yet." I remember. You had already earned it. We were just too stubborn and scared to see it. He looked directly at me, his eyes bright with unshed tears. "You earned it when you were 16 and started that tutoring business. You earned it when you convinced us to let you manage the neighborhood car wash fundraiser and doubled the money raised. You earned it every time you saw a problem and figured out how to solve it. We told you that Emma deserved our support because she'd proven she could succeed, Mom added, her voice breaking. But you had already proven it, over and over again. We didn't want to see it because it wasn't the kind of success we understood. Emma was crying too now. I told you, she said to our parents. I told you for years that Clara was doing something special. I told you to pay attention. You did, Dad agreed. And we should have listened to you. We should have listened to Clara. We should have. He stopped, seeming to struggle with the words. We should have been proud of you from the beginning, Clara. Not just today, when some professor told us we should be. We should have been proud of you when you were 20 years old and helping Mrs. Chen save her coffee shop. We should have been proud of you when you got into Northwestern on your own merit with your own money. We should have been proud of you every single day for the past 7 years. The apology I'd been waiting for my entire adult life was finally happening, but it felt different than I'd imagined. There was relief, yes, but also a deep sadness for all the years we'd lost, all the celebrations that had been missed, all the support that could have made the journey easier. I wanted you to be proud of me, I admitted. Even when I was angry at you, even when I told myself I didn't need your approval, I wanted it. I wanted you to see that I was capable of something great. We see it now, Mom said firmly. And we're so incredibly proud of you, Clara. Not just because you're successful, but because of how you became successful. With integrity and hard work, and by helping other people achieve their dreams too. Dr. Morrison appeared at our table again, this time with Emma's dean and another professor I didn't recognize. I'm sorry to interrupt, he said, but I wanted to make sure Clara had a chance to meet Dean Patterson before she leaves. Dean Patterson, this is Clara Whitaker, the entrepreneur I was telling you about. Dean Patterson, a woman in her 60s with silver hair and sharp eyes, extended her hand. Ms. Whitaker, it's a pleasure. Dr. Morrison has been raving about your work. I understand you're a Northwestern alumna. I am. Well, I will be officially once I complete my final semester. I deferred graduation to take on a major client project. A practical entrepreneur. She smiled. I like that. Tell me, have you ever considered teaching? We're always looking for successful practitioners to share their real-world experience with our students. I glanced at my parents, who were listening with expressions of amazement. I'd be very interested in exploring that, I said. I've been thinking about ways to give back to the academic community that helped shape my thinking. Wonderful. Dr. Morrison, let's set up a meeting for next week. Ms. Whitaker, we'd love to discuss having you develop a case study based on your own company's growth and possibly teaching a seminar on entrepreneurial marketing. After they left, my family sat in stunned silence for a moment. A teaching position at the University of Chicago, Emma said, grinning. Clara, do you realize how incredible that is? It's just a conversation, I said, but I was excited. The idea of teaching, of sharing what I'd learned with the next generation of entrepreneurs, felt like a natural next step. Just a conversation, Dad repeated, shaking his head. Clara, universities don't have just conversations with 25-year-olds unless they've accomplished something extraordinary. Mom reached across the table and took my hand. We've missed so much, she said. We've missed so much of your life, your success, your achievements. Is there any way we can be part of your future? I looked at my parents, really looked at them, for the first time in years. I saw the regret in their eyes, the genuine remorse, the love that had always been there, but had been clouded by their own fears and limitations. I'd like that, I said simply. I'd like that very much. The weeks following Emma's graduation were a whirlwind of reconnection and discovery. My parents, as if trying to make up for 7 years of missed conversations, called me almost daily. They wanted to know everything: how my business operated, what my office looked like, who my employees were, what my plans for the future included. "Tell me about this web industries campaign again," Dad said during one of our calls. "I want to understand exactly how you repositioned their brand." "You really want to hear this?" I asked, still somewhat amazed by his interest. "Clara, I want to hear everything. I've got 7 years of your life to catch up on." So I told him. I explained the research process, the strategic thinking, the creative development, the execution, and the results. I sent him copies of the campaign materials, the press coverage, and the case study that Dr. Morrison was using in his classes. "This is sophisticated work," he said after reviewing everything. "This isn't some small business marketing. This is corporate-level strategy and execution." "I know, Dad. That's what I've been trying to tell you." "I know you have. And I'm sorry I wasn't listening." Mom, meanwhile, wanted to understand the human side of my success. "Tell me about your employees," she said. "What are they like? Are they happy working for you?" I thought about my team, the graphic designers, content writers, account managers, data analysts, and administrative staff who had become like family to me over the years. "They're incredible, Mom. Most of them are young, like me, and they're all passionate about what we do. We have flexible work arrangements, profit sharing, full health benefits, and a continuing education fund so they can keep developing their skills." "You provide all that?" "Of course. These people took a chance on working for a young company instead of going to established agencies. The least I can do is make sure they're taken care of." "That's very mature thinking, Clara. I learned from watching you and Dad, actually. You always treated your employees well, even when it was expensive to do so." There was a pause. "We did. Dad, you used to bring home stories about fighting for your team's raises and bonuses. Mom, you spent your own money on classroom supplies when the school budget was cut. You taught me that taking care of people isn't just good business, it's the right thing to do." I could hear her crying softly on the other end of the line. "We did something right then. You did a lot of things right. I just took a path you didn't expect." The most meaningful conversation came with Emma, though. She had started her job at McKinsey & Company and was living in a downtown Chicago apartment, finally close enough for us to see each other regularly. "I have a confession," she said over dinner at a restaurant near her office. "I used to be jealous of you. I nearly choked on my wine." "Jealous of me?" "Emma, you were the golden child. You got everything you wanted." "I got everything Mom and Dad wanted," she corrected. "But you got to be yourself. You got to chase your dreams and build something that mattered to you. I spent my whole life doing what I thought I was supposed to do, and you spent yours doing what you were passionate about. It wasn't easy, Em. There were a lot of nights when I wondered if I was making a huge mistake. But you didn't give up. Even when Mom and Dad cut you off, even when they said you were being irresponsible, you kept building toward your vision. I admired that. I still admire that." I reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "You know what I admired about you? You never let our parents' attitude toward me affect how you treated me. You could have taken their side, made things easier for yourself. But you always believed in me." "Of course I did. You're my sister. And you're brilliant. So are you. You graduated summa cum laude from one of the best universities in the country and landed a job at McKinsey. That's incredible, Em." She smiled, but it was tinged with uncertainty. "Can I tell you something? I'm not sure consulting is what I want to do long term. I mean, it's prestigious and the money is good, but watching what you've built, seeing how much impact you have on the businesses you work with, how much your employees love working for you. I think I want to build something too. Something that's mine. I felt a surge of excitement. What kind of something? I don't know yet, but I have some ideas about financial consulting for small businesses. A lot of the companies you work with probably need help with financial planning and analysis, right? Emma, that's brilliant. Small businesses almost never have access to the kind of high-level financial expertise that big companies take for granted. If you could make that accessible and affordable, you think it could work? I think it could be huge. And I think you'd be amazing at it. We spent the rest of dinner brainstorming possibilities, and for the first time in our lives, it felt like we were true partners instead of just sisters. 6 months after Emma's graduation, I received an invitation that brought everything full circle. Dr. Morrison had followed through on his offer, and I had been teaching a monthly seminar at the University of Chicago on entrepreneurial marketing. The students were engaged, the feedback was excellent, and I was discovering that I loved teaching almost as much as I loved running my business. But the invitation wasn't about teaching. It was about speaking. The Chicago Business Leadership Conference? I read aloud to Emma over the phone. Dr. Morrison wants me to be a keynote speaker. Clara, that's huge. The Chicago Business Leadership Conference is where all the major CEOs and entrepreneurs speak. I think Dad's company sends people to it every year. The theme is building success against the odds. I continued reading. They want me to talk about starting a business without traditional support systems and scaling it into a multi-million-dollar agency. Are you going to do it? I think so. It's terrifying, but I think so. You have to do it. And you have to invite Mom and Dad. I paused. Do you think they'd want to come? Clara, are you kidding? They would be so proud to watch you give a keynote speech at a major business conference. They brag about you to everyone now. Dad's coworkers are probably sick of hearing about his CEO daughter. She was right. In the months since Emma's graduation, my parents had become my biggest cheerleaders. They shared my successes on social media, sent my articles to their friends, and asked detailed questions about every aspect of my business. It was as if they were trying to make up for 7 years of indifference with concentrated enthusiasm. I called them that evening. Mom, Dad, I have some news I wanted to share with you. What is it, honey? Mom's voice was eager. I told them about the keynote invitation, about the conference, about the opportunity to share my story with other business leaders. Clara, that's incredible. Dad's voice was full of pride. A keynote speech. Do you realize what an honor that is? I was hoping. I was wondering if you might want to come. To the conference, I mean. As my guests. There was silence on the other end of the line, and for a moment I worried I'd overstepped. Clara, Mom's voice was thick with emotion. We would be honored to be there. We would be so proud to watch you speak. Just promise me you won't be embarrassed if I'm nervous, I said, laughing. It's going to be about 800 people. Embarrassed? Dad's voice was incredulous. Clara, we could never be embarrassed of you. We're going to be the proudest parents in that audience. The conference was held at the Palmer House Hilton in a ballroom that looked exactly as intimidating as I'd imagined. 800 business leaders, entrepreneurs, and executives filled the room, and I was scheduled to speak right after lunch, historically the toughest slot because people were tired and distracted. But as I stood backstage waiting for my introduction, I felt surprisingly calm. I had a story to tell, and it was a true story. I had built something meaningful from nothing, and I had done it by staying true to my vision even when the people closest to me didn't understand it. My parents and Emma were sitting in the third row, right where I could see them. Emma gave me a thumbs up and mouthed, "You've got this." Mom and Dad were both smiling, looking more proud than I'd ever seen them. "Ladies and gentlemen," the conference host announced, "please welcome Clara Whitaker, founder and CEO of Whitaker and Associates Marketing Solutions." I walked onto the stage to polite applause, looking out at the sea of faces. For a moment, I thought about the 18-year-old girl who had been told she hadn't earned her parents' trust yet. I thought about the 20-year-old living in a studio apartment above a pizza place, building her first marketing campaigns on a laptop that barely worked. I thought about all the rejections, the sleepless nights, the moments of doubt. And then I began to speak. 7 years ago, my parents told me I was being irresponsible for wanting to start my own business instead of taking a safe, predictable path. They said I hadn't proven I deserved their support. Today, I want to talk about what it means to prove yourself when no one believes in you, and what happens when you succeed beyond everyone's expectations, including your own. For the next 45 minutes, I told my story. I talked about the importance of believing in yourself when others don't. I talked about turning rejection into motivation. I talked about building something sustainable by focusing on serving others rather than just making money. I talked about the responsibility that comes with success and the importance of lifting others up along the way. The audience was engaged from the first sentence. I could see people leaning forward, taking notes, nodding in recognition. When I mentioned the scholarship fund for first-generation college students, several people applauded. When I talked about the importance of supporting your employees like family, I got a standing ovation. But the moment that mattered most to me was when I looked out at my parents and saw tears streaming down both their faces. They weren't tears of embarrassment or regret. They were tears of pure pride. When I finished my speech, the applause was thunderous and sustained. People stood up, whistled, cheered. I had given keynote speeches before, but never to a response like this. As I walked off the stage, I was immediately surrounded by conference attendees wanting to talk, to share their own stories, to ask for advice. Business cards were exchanged, connections were made, and I could already see new opportunities forming. But the conversation that mattered most was waiting for me in the hallway outside the ballroom. My parents were waiting for me as I emerged from the crowd of networking executives and potential clients. They both looked stunned, as if they couldn't quite believe what they had just witnessed. "Clara," Dad said, his voice hoarse with emotion. That was extraordinary. "You captivated that entire room," Mom added. 800 successful business people, and you had every single one of them hanging on your words. Emma bounced up beside them, practically glowing with pride. "Clara, you were incredible. I've never seen anything like that response to a keynote speech." "Thanks, guys." I was pretty nervous, but once I got started, it felt natural. "Natural," Dad repeated, shaking his head. "Clara, what you just did up there wasn't natural. It was masterful. You told your story in a way that made everyone in that audience want to be better at what they do." A distinguished woman in her 50s approached our group. "Excuse me, Ms. Whitaker? I'm Sarah Chen, CEO of Chen Industries. I wanted to tell you that your speech was one of the most inspiring presentations I've heard in 20 years of attending business conferences." "Thank you so much, Ms. Chen. That means a lot. I was particularly moved by your scholarship program for first-generation college students. My company has been looking for meaningful ways to give back to the community, and I'd love to discuss partnering with you on expanding that program." After she walked away, more executives approached with similar comments and offers. Within 30 minutes, I had business cards from potential clients worth millions in revenue, speaking invitations for 3 other conferences, and partnership opportunities that could transform both my business and my scholarship program. This is surreal. I murmured to Emma as another CEO praised my presentation. "Get used to it," she said with a grin. "I have a feeling this is just the beginning." She was right. Over the next hour, as the conference wound down, I was approached by dozens of business leaders. Some wanted to hire Whitaker and Associates for their marketing needs. Others wanted me to speak at their company events or industry conferences. Several mentioned potential partnerships or investment opportunities. But the most meaningful conversation came from an unexpected source. "Ms. Whitaker?" A young woman who looked to be about 22 approached hesitantly. "I'm sorry to bother you, but I'm Jessica Martinez. I work in the events department here, and I just wanted to say, your story really resonated with me." "How so?" "I'm trying to start my own event planning business, but my family thinks it's too risky. They want me to keep working for the hotel and build up savings first. Hearing you talk about building something from nothing, about proving yourself when people don't believe in you, it gave me courage." I pulled out one of my business cards and wrote my personal email address on the back. "Jessica, email me next week. I'd love to hear about your business plan and see if there's any way I can help." Her eyes filled with tears. "Really? You'd do that?" "Someone believed in me when I needed it most," I said, glancing at Emma. "It's important to pass that forward." As Jessica walked away clutching my card, Dad put his hand on my shoulder. "You know what I'm most proud of?" he said quietly. "What?" "Not just that you succeeded, but how you succeeded. With integrity, with generosity, with genuine care for other people. That speech wasn't just about your business accomplishments. It was about the kind of person you've become." Mom nodded, wiping away fresh tears. "We raised you to be kind and hardworking, but you became those things on a level we never imagined possible." "I learned from watching you," I said honestly. "Both of you always treated people with respect and dignity, even when it was hard. You taught me that success without compassion isn't really success at all." "We also taught you that taking risks was irresponsible," Dad said with a rueful laugh. "Clearly, we were wrong about that." "You weren't wrong to worry about me," I said. "You were just wrong to think that worry meant you couldn't support me. I could have used your encouragement during those first few years." "You'll have it from now on," Mom promised. "Whatever you want to do next, wherever you want to take your business, whatever dreams you want to chase, you have our complete support." Emma slipped her arm through mine. "Speaking of what's next, I have something to tell you all." We turned to look at her. "I gave notice at McKinsey yesterday." "Emma," Mom gasped. "It's okay, Mom. It's good news." "Clara, remember our conversation about financial consulting for small businesses? I've been working on a business plan, and I want to make it happen. I want to start my own company." I felt a surge of excitement and pride. That's incredible. What's your timeline?" "Well, I was hoping to start by partnering with Whitaker and Associates, offering financial planning and analysis services to your existing clients, and then expanding from there." "You want to work together?" "If you're open to it. I know you built your company independently, and I don't want to impose on what you've created. But I think we could help a lot of small businesses by combining marketing strategy with financial planning." I looked at my sister, brilliant, capable Emma, who had finally decided to forge her own path, and felt overwhelmed with love and possibility. "Emma, I can't think of anything I'd rather do than build something with you." Our parents were beaming as they watched us discuss partnership possibilities, marketing strategies, and expansion plans. For the first time in our adult lives, we were a family united by shared pride and mutual support. As we walked out of the Palmer house together, I reflected on the journey that had brought us to this moment. 7 years earlier, I had been an 18-year-old girl whose parents told her she hadn't earned their trust. Today, I was a successful CEO, a keynote speaker, a mentor to other young entrepreneurs, and, finally, a daughter whose parents were genuinely proud of who she had become. The best revenge, I realized, hadn't been proving them wrong. It had been proving to myself that I was capable of more than anyone, including me, had ever imagined possible. And now, with Emma by my side and my parents finally in my corner, I was ready to find out just how much more was possible. As we stepped out onto the Chicago sidewalk, Dad cleared his throat. "Clara, there's something else I need to say." I turned to look at him. "When you were 18, I told you that you hadn't earned our trust yet. I want you to know that you had already earned it. You'd earned it years before, and I was too stubborn and scared to see it. But more than that." He paused, his voice thick with emotion. "I want you to know that you've exceeded every measure of success I could have imagined. Not just financially, not just professionally, but as a human being. You've become someone I admire, and I'm honored to be your father." Standing there on the busy Chicago street, surrounded by the family that had doubted me and now celebrated me, I felt something I hadn't felt since I was a child, completely, unconditionally loved and accepted for exactly who I was. It had taken 7 years, a multi-million-dollar business, a keynote speech, and a sister's graduation to get here. But we had finally made it home. If you've made it this far in my story, I hope it's because you see something of yourself in the struggle. I hope you're someone who's been underestimated, overlooked, or told your dreams are too big for your circumstances. Today, Whitaker & Associates has 52 employees and annual revenue of $12.4 million. Emma's financial consulting branch, Whitaker Financial Solutions, has helped over 200 small businesses improve their financial health and long-term sustainability. Together, we've expanded our scholarship program to serve first-generation college students in 5 states. But the numbers aren't what matter most to me. What matters is the letter I received last month from Jessica Martinez, the young woman I met at the business conference. She launched her event planning company 6 months ago and just landed her first major corporate client. She wrote to thank me for believing in her when she needed it most. What matters is watching Emma discover her own passion for entrepreneurship and seeing her build something that's entirely her own creation. What matters is the relationship I now have with my parents, one built on mutual respect, genuine pride, and unconditional support. And what matters is every message I receive from people who heard my story and decided to take a risk on their own dreams. If you're someone who's been told you haven't earned trust yet, if you're someone whose family doesn't understand your vision, if you're someone who's building something from nothing while others doubt you can succeed, this story is for you. You don't need anyone else's permission to be extraordinary. You don't need anyone else's approval to chase your dreams. And you definitely don't need anyone else's financial support to prove your worth. What you need is the courage to bet on yourself, the persistence to keep going when things get hard, and the wisdom to remember that the best revenge against those who doubt you is a life lived fully and successfully on your own terms. 7 years ago, I was told I hadn't earned my family's trust. Today, I've built something that matters, helped hundreds of people achieve their dreams, and created the life I always knew was possible. The girl who wasn't worth the investment became the woman who invests in others. The daughter who was told she was too much of a dreamer became the CEO who helps other dreamers turn their visions into reality. And the best part? This is just the beginning. If my story resonates with you, if you've ever had to fight twice as hard to prove you deserve half as much, I want to hear from you. Comment below and tell me about the dream you're building, the risk you're taking, or the person who believed in you when no one else would. Because the world needs more people who are brave enough to prove the doubters wrong, including sometimes proving wrong the doubters in their own families. Your story matters. Your dreams are valid. and you have already earned the right to chase them. Trust me on this one. I know what I'm talking about.